Hey, what's up, folks? electricDocsTV, and it's the Breakdown, the show that brings you the information, facts and figures, and all the data you need to know about ailments, conditions, health, and general lifestyle. And as you know, we like to introduce some guests, talk about a few different things. And the topic of the moment, no matter when you're watching this, could be now and in the future, COVID-19, the coronavirus that swept the world. It's a world pandemic. And we've had several conversations, myself, Dr. Amsoon, Dr. Amun, with several guests as well. And one of the areas that we wanted to discuss, and I've always wanted to bring some people in to come and help us discuss that, is the mental health side, right? How are people coping with COVID-19, the isolation, depending which country you're in. I know there's some countries, they've got a full-scale lockdown. Here in America, it's down to some different states and some cities and some municipalities. But people are self-quarantining. But I want us to have a conversation around how people are coping with COVID-19. So I'd like to introduce our guest, Coach Janelle. Coach Janelle, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming along. Now, Coach Janelle is a licensed marriage and lifestyle therapist, couples therapist, and counselor as well. And she works with a lot of people on a number of areas, including anxiety, depression, so on and so forth. Coach Janelle, let's talk about coronavirus and the lockdown.
Okay.
So, right now, a lot of people are on either self-isolation, and depending again where you are, you may be on a mandatory sort of a lockdown. What are some of the things people are going to be coping with, in terms of mental and actually just dealing with that isolation?
Right. Well, surprisingly, a lot of the people that I've been doing therapy with have said that so far, granted, it's only been a week or two over here in America, but this has actually been a pleasant experience because the external factors have been removed in terms of work, school, having to interact with people that you don't necessarily get along with. Now, in terms of the long term, that is some of the things that I've been talking with my clients about. Like right now, I know that things are going pretty okay because you don't have to do those interactions. You don't have the pressures of school. You don't have the pressures of work and deadlines and things like that. But there are some things that you still need to be prepared for because with depression, for example, we know that one of the symptoms is to withdraw.
Right.
And so this is literally
enabling. This is like a feeling. My goodness.
Exactly. Yep. So you have to have a plan set in place because this is literally the grounds for your depression to come back.
Right.
So some things that I've been encouraging to do is, for one, get in the habit of getting out of the house. You have to get out of the house.
Yep.
Whether that is just being in your backyard or just taking a walk around the neighborhood, it's very important that you get out, get some vitamin D, so that way you are not completely in isolation, okay? So that is like the biggest thing for me that I've been encouraging people to do.
Yep.
The other thing, whether you're in isolation with family or by yourself, it is still important to have some sort of social interaction with people.
Of course, yeah.
So if you are FaceTiming people, for example, I highly encourage you to do that. Again, just because it is social distancing doesn't mean that you have to cut off everything socially. Exactly,
okay.
Exactly.
Still ways of doing it, using all the modern technology.
Right. So it's actually more so physical distancing is what we're practicing, not necessarily social distancing, because socializing is still very important.
Absolutely.
And so if you're at home completely by yourself, try to continue to FaceTime, text, still reach out to people, still have that relationship that you need with other people. And if you're at home with family, I know I've been seeing a lot of people on Instagram, Facebook, that are really connecting more with their family. They're playing board games. They're doing the TikTok dances. I don't know
all the things they weren't doing before.
All the things that they weren't doing before, and they didn't have the time to do before that they're now engaging in, which is essentially a coping skill. When you are doing those things and getting into those fun activities, those are essentially your coping skills. So those are some of the things that I've been encouraging people to start participating in.
And you mentioned a couple of good things there. So, we've talked about it before on other segments about the sunlight, getting out into the sun, vitamin D, how important vitamin D3 is, and definitely parts of the country that you're not going to get enough D3. So whatever you can get, you need to get out of the house to stretch, get the air in your lungs.
Right.
So we may have social distancing, we may have a quarantine, but you can still, jog around your house, maybe your apartment block. I don't think there are any cities where there are National Guard and police outside your building going to shoot you if you come out of the house. So make sure you do take advantage of those things. So we talked about sort of coping. So for some people it's a holiday, right? They haven't got work, they haven't got school, they're in a lockdown, stuffing their face with the Cheetos and the Takis, so it's a great time for them. But what about people who maybe weren't engaged, weren't working, weren't at school, who are probably isolated, maybe suffering depression or anxiety or just from loneliness.
Right.
You know,
right.
what should we be doing to, you know, maybe look out for those people as well?
Right. So, like you said, for some people, it is a vacation. They are enjoying it to the fullest.
Having a great time.
But then there's those other people who just got laid off.
Right.
Right. And they're having to possibly file for unemployment again here in America.
Those numbers have gone through the roof now.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But those are some things that are causing some anxiety to come about. What's the financial position look like for them in a couple of weeks?
Yep.
You know, and so those things are the things that are going to start creeping in ever so subtly.
Yep.
And so, so for those things, it is going to have to be about what is the reality of it, and trying to work towards the accepting part of it. Again, it's going to be very hard because you do have this very real situation that's happening, and it is out of your control. And so a lot of times with people who deal with anxiety, they're trying to keep everything in their control. But this is a situation that's completely out of your control that you cannot change.
So they feel they're losing a grip or something like that.
Exactly. So it is being able to cope with the reality of it. Again, it's going to be very difficult to do because of so many various factors that can happen because of this situation.
Yeah.
And so I encourage people to journal. That is a big thing for me, is writing down how it is that you're feeling, because again, you're going to have a ton of emotional reactions from this. So it's important to be able to get those feelings out and try to make sense of it.
Right.
Because with anxiety, what you tend to do is go to the worst case scenario. So because I've just lost my job, that means I'm going to lose my house, my car. Like you
Doom
just
and
go
gloom, just cascades like a
exactly.
Yeah.
And so again, it's about saying, okay, maybe I won't lose the house quite yet. Maybe that is something that that can happen potentially 6 months from now.
Right.
But right now, it may not necessarily happen within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Again, I know our government, they signed the bill for the stimulus.
Well, I was going to say, so I mean, I think part of that stimulus program was really about trying to curb anxiety and depression, right?
Yeah.
It's not so much necessarily just economic, because I think the mental health of the country is as important, if not more important, than, you know, the sort of financial stimulus.
Right.
And so, you know, I think it's a great thing you're saying is that, you know, it's not just happening to you.
Yeah.
Right. It's happening to the whole. It's happening to the whole world. It's happening to the whole country. So, you know, if I can add anything to that, I don't want people to think that, you know, with anxiety, I know people tend to get into their own head. Realize that it's happening to everybody. It's happening to your neighbors.
Right.
But on that topic, so let's say you have a pre-existing condition with anxiety or depression or maybe some other, you know, clinical mental health issue.
Right.
What are the things those people that know they have something, what should they be doing at this time? I know you're talking about journaling for most of us, I guess.
Right.
But but if they have pre-existing conditions, what else can they do?
Right. So the things that I encourage people who are already dealing with depression and anxiety is to use the coping skills. And I know a lot of times when we hear coping skills, we often think, okay, that means counting to 10. That means breathing,
holding it in, breathing.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I've realized that doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
That doesn't work for a majority of people.
Right.
And so what I talk to my clients a lot about is, what are the things that you already like doing, and then applying that as a coping skill. It's more intentional. Right. Because I didn't realize that makeup was a coping skill.
Look at that.
But if you enjoy doing makeup,
it's therapeutic, right?
It's therapeutic.
Yeah.
It takes your mind off of what's happening in the present moment. And so if you already like doing makeup, it's more of an intentional act for when you are starting to feel anxious or depressed. I realize that I'm starting to slowly slip into my depressive state.
Yeah.
And so I know I like to do makeup.
Look at that.
Right?
So have those hobbies, those things that you like to do, have them.
You intentionally do it for that purpose.
Right.
And so what I also encourage people to do is, not only do you have that one thing, but add on to things. So, okay, I like watching YouTube tutorials.
Yes.
Right? So if I watch a YouTube tutorial of them doing a makeup, whatever, I will spend maybe 20 minutes doing that.
Yep.
And then I actually try to implement the makeup, and I have my
Actually
music
do it yourself.
and actually do it myself.
Because there was a talk about that very quickly, that people watch all these YouTube DIY videos,
Yep.
but they never actually do the DIY.
Right,
So
exactly.
how to put up shelves, they never actually put the shelves up.
Right,
What
exactly.
Coach Janelle is saying is like, listen, watch the video,
and
then
then
go
do
put
it.
up the shelves.
Exactly.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Exactly. So you're combining two things together,
Yep.
right? So as you're applying your makeup, you are listening to music,
Mm.
right? So a lot of times people, again, with listening to music, that is something that is a isolated thing,
That's
right?
me. I got the headphones in.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's important to combine that with something else that you like to do as well. So it's not just listening to music, it's listening to music and cooking. It's listening to music and cleaning. It's listening to music and doing whatever it is. And so you are watching your DIY, you're doing the makeup, you have the music in the background, and you may also have a candle lit that is also going to be used for if you like the smell of candles, that is subconsciously calming you down. Right. And so it's being able to identify what are those things that you already like to do, and then implementing it intentionally.
Look at that. Listen, I'm here with Coach Janelle, folks. It's electricDocsTV. It's the breakdown. You know, to get into the channel, you got to listen. You got to subscribe to the channel. We're going to have a lot more great content coming out. We're talking about coronavirus, COVID-19. It's 2020. They've shut down the month of March. We are now officially, you know, it's a whole new year. We're going to start the whole new year again, hopefully in April. Your president reckons Easter. So Easter Sunday is going to be the start of the new year for us, okay? Listen, if you've got any questions, you know how to drop the questions into the IG. Again, we're here with Coach Janelle. We're talking about coping and, you know, just sort of handling mental health around the isolation. So timing. So here in America, we've had maybe 1 or 2 weeks under the isolation. Again, mostly, and I really want to commend most people that are doing it sort of voluntarily. It's not being forced isolation. Yeah. But we're 10 days in, we're 2 weeks in, right? People are coping, they're TikToking, they're IGing, listening to music, cooking, doing makeup, right?
Yeah.
What happens in 2 more weeks? What happens in a month's time when people have been locked down and you know, the toilet paper's running out, you know,
exactly.
The dog's going stir crazy, the kids are, you know, tearing down the walls.
Yeah.
What's going to happen then?
That is a really good question. I think that then it is important to, like you said, everyone's having such a great time. They're doing their videos. Then they're going to get sick and tired of being in isolation. They're going to get sick and tired of their family members, right? So, yeah, great question. What are you going to do when you are completely just like, I'm done, I don't want to be here anymore? So, some things maybe that I could recommend doing is, again, if you're getting out of the house and practicing maybe some meditation, it gives you some time to get away, right? Because we can't really escape the present reality of the fact that you have to be home. But meditation, I think, is a great way for you to be able to take a mental break from everything that's happening, from life that's happening. And the thing with meditation that I also talk to my clients about is they think that they're doing it wrong because their thoughts are still going.
I was going to say that. I'm never sure if I'm doing it right.
Right. They think they're doing it wrong because they're like, my mind is still going.
You're right.
Right. And it's a practice that you have to do to be able to train your mind to get to a meditative state. But you have to practice it. It's not something that is going to be a natural process.
Right.
So I tell people, don't give up on it.
So if you did it the first time, you didn't get it right, you didn't you know, find that kumbaya moment. Don't give up, you know, try it again. Let me ask you this, talking about meditation. There are so many, I mean, YouTube, there's a whole bunch of them. There are books, there are CDs, there are apps now. You know, and there's a lot of noise around that. And I'm not asking you maybe to recommend any particular one, but what's a good starting position for that meditation that someone needs to do? They can do right now in their home without buying anything. Right. What would you recommend?
Well, I can recommend an app called Insight Timer.
Insight Timer.
Yeah. And that one is free. It has 35,000 free meditations. So, and I know people are all about free. So there are certain apps where, like the Calm app, for example, where after a while you got to pay for it.
Right. Okay.
But with Insight Timer, they do have things in there, like if you want to do courses and stuff like that, to pay for. But there's literally 35,000 free meditations that you can. That you can use. They break it down into time, like if you want to do 10 minutes, 20. They break it down into categories. So if it's for stress and anxiety or sleep or relationships, whatever.
Right.
They break it down into those categories as well. So, and people from all over the world are using it. You can log into the app and see like who's using it in your neighborhood.
Excellent.
You know, so.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So you learned something free right here on the show. So that's Insight Timer. I don't know, maybe we'll try and get a link to it in the comments down below.
Yeah.
35,000 free meditations. I think it's always a great place to start. One other quick thing I want to touch on is panic. Right?
Yes.
So, you know, in the first few days of this, there's a lot of panic, and there was the panic buying, you know, they wiped out the stores, you know, old ladies were getting beaten up.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think people are throwing all caution to the wind. You know, it's a zombie apocalypse. It's 9/11 times 10. It's the end of the world, right?
Right.
And, you know, what can we do to curb panic, even, you know, in ourselves and maybe, you know, in people around us?
Right.
What can we do to, like, you know, help curb panic? What are some mechanisms there?
And, you know, I thought it was wild too that all the toilet paper was
still can't get in.
Right, but it is important to be compassionate for those people and be empathetic because they're afraid. That's all that was. Like you said, it was panic buying because oh my God, it's the end of the world. You know, it's Y2K again, right? People are losing their minds. But it is important to have compassion for people who are like that and to be empathetic to the situation that's happening. Right, none of us have any idea of what's going on.
Right, what's going to happen next?
Right, and so I can understand why people are acting the way that they are, and I think it's important for all of us to be humans and recognize that, you know, just because I don't think that buying toilet paper is that serious doesn't mean that you don't think that, right? And it's still important to just be able to say, but I get it, I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, folks, electricDocsTV, I'm here with Coach Janelle, who's a licensed therapist, and she's come along to help just, you know, expand this conversation around COVID-19, the isolation, talk about how people are coping with that, things you can do to cope with it. You know, again, just dealing with anxiety, depression, and it's been absolutely brilliant. And Coach Janelle, we want to thank you for coming along, and we want to have you back, of course.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to come back and we're going to talk about sports because they've taken all of our sports away.
I know.
I know a lot of women out here agonizing, but you know, the fellas, you know, we're just, you know, panicking out here for that, if anything else, you know. So again, folks, electricDocsTV, it's the breakdown. We're here with Coach Janelle with mental health, COVID-19. Take charge of your lives, folks.